Mark Britton took the stand at the ongoing Walter Rodney Commission of Inquiry today and testified of an atmosphere of dissatisfaction by the masses with the governance style of the late People's National Congress leader Forbes Burnham. Britton, who is deeply rooted in the Rastafarian faith, said while he was not entirely opposed to Burnham's foreign import restrictions, many citizens during that time felt that their freedom was being stifled.
Even though I had not formed an opinion on who I thought Burnham was, I can certainly say that most people at this time, late 70s, including some of my relatives and public servants and ordinary workers whom I worked with or met in the working environment and associated with, in my opinion, had at that time, because of the problems involving Burnham's socialist policies of buy local, foreign import restrictions, currency restrictions, etc., without any memory or understanding of the 1973 world oil crisis, which crippled the whole third world, came to the conclusion that Burnham did not know what he was doing and was causing problems with America and England by his close association with Castro in Cuba and the communist world. And he was now the source of their continued poverty.
Britton, who is attached to the House of Nyabingi, told the Commission of Inquiry that many of the policies enforced by Burnham during the 1978 and 1980 period were viewed as harsh. He spoke of citizens in the public service being forced to cut canes during the estate strikes against their will. Burnham's foreign import restrictions, according to Britton, were frowned upon by a large number of Guyanese.
Added to this, he had nationalized most prime industries and was mismanaging them, and this was causing the country to stagnate in their opinion. Burnham, being African, did not count at that time, and being government workers would not stop persons from criticizing Burnham or joining WP against Burnham, as they were Africans, many with Rodney. Also, there was the issue of having to cut cane in the time of strikes and go-slows, which public servants were required to do and were not happy about, even the army, etc.
Britton added that the Rastafarians back then were also dissatisfied with the treatment they received by law enforcers for simply observing their culture. Britton was incarcerated a few times, but he told the commissioners that he had not experienced any victimization, although many other Rastafarians got their dreadlocks cut off by police officers.
Rastas in general were against that. It was considered harassment, right?
So your brethren considered the actions of the Guyana police force, the policemen, searching them as harassment.
Right, and also because of certain confrontations, I get the police, I know this of a fact that the police did take advantage of some and cut off their locks or that kind of stuff in those days, right? Some persons did suffer that.
And just for the purposes of the record, what was the significance of the cutting of the locks? Why was it seen with outrage within your Rastafarian faith?
Because, like I said, it was against the norms of society, right, of being groomed. And it was considered primitive in the black society because this is supposed to be the modern world. Because we came in under the European colonization, and this is the system.
So when your brethren had their locks cut off, they were very dissatisfied with that sort of treatment?
Yes, definitely.
And what did they do with this dissatisfaction in relation to the treatment and the harassment you described they were feeling from the police?
Well, they could not do anything basically. At least they did not do anything basically other than complain.
Britton, while noting that he was not linked to any political party, said he was asked to locate a firing range for the Working People's Alliance, WPA. He stated that a plot of family land at Yarra Cabra was located for the party in exchange for a weapon or two for his protection. However, the plan fell through, at which time he was instructed to lie low and decided to migrate to Aruba.
So I decided I would search for a firing range behind Yarra Cabra, where I was occupying a plot of land belonging to my father, who had migrated to the USA. Show it to him and who they needed to check it for its suitability and safety. And if approved, then I did not need to meet Dr. Rodney. I just needed 1 or 2 pieces of protection for my own safety as a reward.
Now, you indicated here that once the location was checked for suitability and safety, and if it was approved, I did not need to meet Dr. Rodney. Was it indicated to you by Basil, your brethren, that if it was not approved, Dr. Rodney would need to see it? Did you have that conversation with him?
No.
So how is it you came to the conclusion that if it was checked and it was not found to be suitable for safety, then perhaps Dr. Rodney would need to check it?
No, it wasn't that understanding I'm speaking on. I was saying that if they, whoever checked it, and as long as they accepted it, I just wanted to deal with him personally then. That's it. I want him to just be the liaison between what I did and what my reward is going to be. I didn't want to be involved. That is what I'm indicating here. I'm indicating this, not him.
So he never, Basil, just for the record, Basil never told you that if this was not approved by him, then directly Dr. Rodney would come. He never told you. That was your understanding or your assumption.
No. I mentioned Brother Rodney's name only on the part of I did not need to be introduced to the leadership. I just needed who to go and check it, and for him to reward me with what I needed, and that was that. I didn't need to be introduced to the leadership, right? This is what I was trying to make clear.
But what was the reward you needed?
Exactly.
Well, 2 pieces of arms, 1 or 2 pieces of guns that I can protect myself with.
Prisons. You said in paragraph 34 that you consequently revealed the deal I was seeking to my brethren Ras Basil, who later gave me the okay to go ahead. So you made the request from Ras Basil that you required 1 or 2 pieces of protection for your own safety as a reward.
Yes.
You indicated that to him.
Yes.
And was it at the same time he told you it was okay, or did he take some time to go and come back and then tell you it was okay?
No. He consulted with, I don't know who, but after he came, when we met again, he told me it was okay, I could go ahead.
And you can't say who he communicated with because he never told you?
No, I never wanted to know either.
You said in paragraph 35 that you spent at least 1 week going out every day to scout the land.
Yes.
And this is the land at Yarra Cabra?
Yes, behind Yarra Cabra.
And what did you find from your scouting for this week, your scouting activities?
Well, I did find eventually an area where there was no signs of life, no road, no path through, no sign of any activity, wide enough, large enough that it was possible you could do some kind of training there, right? Far away from the known persons dwelling in that area, which is on the highway.
And you spent an entire week doing this scouting?
Yes.
And on your return to the city, did you communicate with Ras Basil?
Yes, I did.
And what happened during that conversation? What did you tell them?
Well, I told them I had found the area and they could come to check it.
And what did he say to you?
He told me that right now everything has to be on the down low because of an incident that had transpired while I was up there.
What had transpired?
What incident is that?
Someone was shot in Burnham Gardens, who the police claimed had a lot of weapons in their trunk, right? Which in other news was claiming otherwise, but this is what he told me. He called the brother name, but I just remember it's an African name, but I could not remember the exact name.
He said something about otherwise. Somebody said otherwise, but I didn't get it. Could the witness repeat that aspect, please?
He
I
said
didn't get that.
someone was shot in some gardens.
Burnham Gardens. That's what he said.
No, he said more than that, and that the allegation was that the person had arms, but that somebody else said otherwise. I didn't get who you were saying said otherwise.
Who would have said otherwise?
Well, the conversation that we had was just about this person being shot. But when the report comes out, right, in the next day papers, or when I looked at the papers, well, the papers are already out. When I looked at the papers, it was saying, that was I guess the government people was saying that this person had arms, right? But there were other papers at that time. I know the Mirror had papers going on, the Catholic Standard, probably the Day Clean from the WPA, but they were circulation of other, there was tabloid news, I think, probably.
And these other publications were what, contradicting the finding of the arms?
Right. Those who were against the government were saying no, it was just that they thought it was Rodney in the car. And the WPF case was claiming that the person had any arms, but the government was saying that he had arms. The police were saying that.
Can you remember the African name of the person who was in Dr. Rodney's car?
No, I can't.
Who was shot, the person who was shot. He said
right.
in a statement here, in paragraph 37, you said, I learned that it was a brother with an African name driving in Dr. Rodney's car. That is what you learned?
Right.
Whom the police claimed had guns in his trunk.
Right.
Can you remember the brother with the African name?
No, I can't remember his name.
I believe from the record, Mr. Chairman, it would be Ohini Kwayama?
Yes.
Kwama, yes. Would that be the name?
Yes.
Yes.
The witness also said something that one of the papers were saying that they thought it was Rodney in the car. Just for clarification, the paper was saying that who thought it was Rodney in the car?
That the police, because they were going to assassinate Rodney, this is one of the claims that were being made by other reports or news sources.
Britain said these arrangements were conducted through one Ras Basil, who was a member of the WPA. The commission also heard that Britain was not in Guyana at the time of Dr. Walter Rodney's death, but he heard conflicting reports on his demise. There was some speculation, Britain said, that the PNC government had killed Dr. Rodney.
It was during these weeks in Aruba when on the 14th or 15th of June, I was told by the brother of a St. Vincentian, whom I had met through another Guyanese I met there, that someone who he called your boy in Guyana, but could not remember his name, had been killed in Guyana. I was at that time so far away from that form of confusion, I did not know or I did not know had started back up again. And it took several minutes for me to doubtfully ask if it was Rodney, as he kept insisting that I knew who he was. To which he said, yeah, that's the boy. That's the boy. Them kill him, you know, them kill him.
And that boy that they were referring to was Dr. Rodney.
Right.
So at the time that Dr. Rodney died, you were not in Guyana.
No.
And you would have received information from his death in relation to reports that were outside of the country.
Yes.
These reports that you received, did they indicate how Dr. Rodney met his death?
No, I only heard from this person telling me that he heard that.
So the information you gathered surrounding the circumstances of Dr. Rodney's death, you got that when you returned to Guyana?
Yes.
And when you returned to Guyana, what was your understanding of how Dr. Rodney met his death?
Well, I just understood that a bomb went off.
And that was it?
That was it. Well, the same thing I came into, the different papers giving you different versions, right, of the bomb, whether he had it or somebody placed it there.
Assistant Lead Counsel to the Commission, Lachmi Rahamat, highlighted the significance of Britton's testimony to the inquiry.
Mr. Britton has come to the witness box and he has told the Commission his experiences between the period 1978-1980. What is significant from his testimony and what we can take forward in relation to the terms of reference is that he was actually part of the civil service. He spent almost 6 years as a government employee, and when given the option after GPO was becoming a corporation, he decided to go back to the government, and he was then shifted to Ministry of Agriculture. He has told the Commission that there was widespread dissatisfaction amongst not only his relatives, but other co-workers and civil society. And the dissatisfaction came in relation to the then President, Mr. Burnham's policies. And these policies, especially the ones in relation to the ban on certain food items, the restrictions on importation, and even the currency exchange, those restrictions contributed towards the majority of society, according to Mr. Britton, feeling as though the poverty and the continuous cycle of poverty they were stuck in was as a result of Mr. Burnham. And what he's saying is that even though these people, they did not directly blame their situation of poverty on the actual policies that Burnham would have put in place, what he said is instead of blaming the policies, a majority of the people who he was interacting with were blaming directly President Burnham at the time. He said that even though for him he saw nothing wrong with the policies and he supported the policies, he admitted under examination in chief that it was in fact the population who were suffering and were actually suffering in poverty. He said another issue that they were dissatisfied with is that during the go-slows and the strikes, the workers themselves who were part and parcel of the government workers would have had to come out and go cut cane. Although he is indicating that he did not go, he told us, and what we can gather from his evidence, is that circulars were sent around to the various government offices and they were given specific dates to go and cut cane. And he said people did not like that. They were unhappy about that because that's not what they were supposed to be doing. If you go to work in an office, you don't expect to turn up to work and then have to go cut cane. And he's saying this was one of the factors that also caused dissatisfaction at the time. What is also significant from his evidence is he's indicating that there was also a Rastafarian following which would have joined the WPA. In principle, he's saying his faith that he had chosen at the time, the Brethren, it was contrary to their principles to have the Brethren follow a particular political party. But I believe what he was trying to tell us and what he said based on his conversations was that they were also dissatisfied in the way the Rastafarian community was being treated by the police. He said that they were being harassed, and he even spoke of instances where the Guyana police force and some members, when they arrested and harassed these Rastas when they arrested them, some of them had their locks cut off. And based on their practicing faith, that was something that was not only humiliating to them, but it was contrary to their beliefs. And perhaps this is one of the reasons why they were prompted to follow a particular movement, and that of Dr. Rodney. He also indicated that he realized that the situation had gotten to a point where serious steps were going to be taken, where he was then asked by this brother Basil, who was one of his brethren, to get a place where they could use as a firing range. Now, of course, a firing range would be used to shoot guns and to practice and to train for that sort of activity. And when he considered what was happening, he had realized that they were actually on the brink, or there was looming in the atmosphere, civil unrest, which would have come. And he made the decision to scout out an area at Yarrow Cabra. And when he scouted the area and found a place suitable for that sort of activity, he then learned of the death of another WPA member who was supposedly in Dr. Rodney's car at the time. And the police were claiming that he had a gun inside of the car. Although the witness said that there were other conflicting reports in the press and other articles which were published that said that the gentleman was killed because they thought he was Dr. Rodney in Dr. Rodney's car, and that was a failed assassination attempt at Dr. Rodney. I believe the witness's evidence comes from a point of view where he grew up in a time where he was relatively young, 24 years, during this particular aspect of our history. And he brings his own perspective on what he experienced, because he was not unknown in the society. He did, in fact, tell us that he was very active in the football clubs, and even when he was arrested by the police, he personally was not ill-treated because they knew who he was from his football associations. So I think we will have to wait and see what weight will be placed on his evidence, but these are the highlights of what he would have said that could be of interest.